is it like to compete at a sport internationally and have to travel? And are there different rules internationally? How do you guys adjust? And just what is that experience like?
But we'd go over, and I would nap every day. I wake up in the morning, I go to practice, I come back, eat breakfast, I would nap, wake up, go to afternoon practice, eat dinner, watch a movie, or do whatever, and then that was my typical day in the States.
Being able to put that American hat on and seeing all that in front of you and knowing what you're about to go do is super cool part of the sport. And I don't know.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're in the pool twice for 2 hours. One in the morning at 6 a.m., bright and early. Fortunately, in Arizona State, we get to see the sunrise, so that makes it at least a little bit more manageable, a little bit better.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Pro. In this episode, I got a chance to talk with two swimming champions, Zach Harting and Brooks Curry. While they are teammates for the Golden Bears of Cal University and looking for Olympic gold in 2024 in Paris, they share their journey to being two of the best in their sport, plus much more. Take a listen, hit the subscribe button, and let's go Behind the Pro. All right, guys. So, Brooks, we kind of jumped in on a totally different discussion, which was actually really good. But we want to, again, as Stefan was saying, we want people to get to know who you are. We enjoy humanizing athletes because far too often we become stats and accomplishments. So what better way to start off than sharing with the audience where you guys are from and what it was like growing up? And so, Grant, I want to kick it to you first. Talk about where you're from and what it was like growing up for you.
Yeah, so for me, growing up, I lived in Southeast Indiana. And so for my family, it wasn't always like destined for me to be a swimmer, but it was always like kind of around me. The third child of three. My sister's 40, my brother's 34 now. So we're pretty separated in age. So when I came around, I was always around the pool. They both swam. My parents were both coaches. They swam when they were younger too. My mom's family swam. My dad played football and swam, and he swam in college as well too. So it was kind of like always around my environment. I grew up in a crib next to the pool. So I played like basketball up until like 8th grade, summers, like camps and stuff every time. Like I'd go to swim practice, go to basketball camp at the high school to practice, and I just do that like all summer. And then in high school, kind of transitioned more directly into swimming and water polo actually. But for high school, I went to Cincinnati, Ohio. So it was kind of this bigger change, really unexpected. I didn't plan to go to high school. I was telling you earlier, Kevin, really up until like 2 or 3 months beforehand, I was just going to go into the high school I'd always known, East Central in St. Leon, Indiana. And then, fate and my family had other plans once we saw the opportunity and went to St. Xavier, but kind of always grew up around swimming. I always kind of came back to the pool, never wanted to be beaten in there more so than other realms. I'm very competitive. I like to play as many sports as I can, whether it's at the rec gym, just on a field, pickup game, whatever it is, but always kind of came calling back to the pool and seemed to be really excelling in there and really started to take off. And when I was like around 14, 13, 15, nationally when I was like 15 for the first time, and I was like, wow, okay, I can probably do something pretty incredible here, I believe. And then I just kept leaning into that belief, that purpose, that passion. And my family had already gone through kind of the journey of college swimming, being a coach, going through age group. Once I was 15, I was kind of on a new chapter for myself and my family into uncharted territory. So it became a pretty cool journey for me that none of them had ever been on before. But from that point on, it was just kind of uncharted territories and new deep waters to travel. And really cool just to get to this point of continuing on to represent Team USA a couple times internationally, going into my third Olympic trials now. And yeah, just going through the NCAA system at Arizona State University for 6 years, but got some extra borrowed time there in the NCAA. And now I'm in this really unique opportunity, which I never even knew was possible when I was younger, of professional swimming and sustaining myself, getting sponsorships, partnerships, endorsements, having other opportunities, developing my brand for who I want to be and my authentic self. But yeah, I always just thought swimming would end when college ended. And it's in a unique spot now for Zach, Brooks, and I, to where we are removed from college now and we're pursuing these careers and our passions and our athletic abilities to furthest extents and for as long as I feel like each of us want to, really, until we decide to stop. So that's kind of my story of why I'm in it and wanted to be in it, but a lot of family support.
Awesome. Zach, your turn.
So I grew up in Madison, Alabama. My dad was working for the Army, so we traveled a lot. I moved around a couple times when I was, I think, under, let's say, 7 or so. So I actually learned how to swim water safety wise, just so my parents would feel comfortable around the pool because they like to go scuba diving. But we were living in Guam at the time, so they would go out and go scuba diving, and I would hang out on the boat or on the shore or whatever with the other plus ones that were just not going. And I was young and cute, so they'd take care of me while they were out exploring the depths of the ocean. So then they're like, well, we need to get this kid water safe so that if something happens, if he falls in the pool or wherever, he's not going to drown. But then I loved the pool. And so then eventually we moved back stateside. I think we didn't last long over there. I think it was like maybe like a summer or so. I think we lived through like 2 typhoons while we were over there, and which were basically just hurricanes just spinning the other way. So they're like, yeah, we're done with this. So we moved back to the States. My parents saw an article in the paper, and then my mom immediately pretty much had me go sign up for swim lessons. I always liked swimming under the water. I thought that was more fun, which is kind of ironic now because now that's the hardest part of the sport is the underwater. If you're wondering why, it's because you can't breathe under there. So now it's like I had no idea I knew what backstroke and freestyle were, but I hated doing it. I had no idea what breaststroke or butterfly was, but they let me on the developmental team, and I think that was when I was 7, and I've been swimming ever since. So I'm coming up on 20 years, so I'm hoping to make it 20 years, and then we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, I haven't taken really a season off, which has kind of been wild. And then I think I was like 9 or 10, and I was like a summer league meet, and remember there's a really pretty sunset, and I was like, I think either 2004 or 2008 games were going on, and I was like, I want to go to the Olympics. Had no idea what all that entailed, how to make the team, what the national team was. I barely knew where the Olympics were at that time, but I was like, that's cool. That's what I want to do. And then I just kind of kept swimming and taking one thing at a time, I guess. I was like, you got to get to college. So we did that. And then swimming college was like a no-brainer for me. And I ended up at University of Louisville. So I'm on year 9 right now, which I'm like team grandpa, call myself team dad, which is all fun and dandy until some people are like, hey, I've got a 6 a.m. flight and I need to be at the airport at 4:30. And would you take me? It's like something the team dad would do. So I was like, all right, go get him at 4 a.m. That doesn't happen very often, so it's not too bad to handle that. But Grant, you were saying it's like you kind of do this until like you decide to stop. I was like, I just had the vision of like Forrest Gump running, like from coast to coast, basically. He's just doing it for as long as he feels like he wants to do it. And then just one day he's just like, I think I'm done. I'm going to go home. That's kind of what it's like being a professional athlete. I would guess in a bunch of sports, but I can only really talk to swimming. Is like you keep doing it, you're doing it, and you're like, all right, I'm done. But yeah, that's kind of my story is of almost swimming 20 years, and almost 10 of those have been at University of Louisville and a college program. And yeah, so I feel like I'm kind of even at the point of life where you start looking at what's beyond just sport, which can kind of be a little scary, but I think there's a lot of other things out there too, which is its own whole can of worms and stuff there. But
Yeah. So, Brooks, what's your story?
Yeah, so thank you. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I've swam there for my whole life. Swam with Dynamo, and I mean, for me, like I've been swimming since maybe I was around 2 years old. I kind of just like jumped in the summer league pool and just like I guess I liked it so much I just started swimming, and I think the next year they aged me up a group so I could swim like actually, and so I was joining like the team at a very young age, and then I think it was like the same as Zach. I was around 7 years old when I started doing like year round, if you want to call it, like with Dynamo. But yeah, I mean, I made lots of good friends there, and I think that's what has ultimately kept me in the sport for as long as I've been in it. Probably approaching 20 years now in the sport. So I don't know. You got to have like some good friends and I don't know, some really good motivation to be doing something for this long, especially with no breaks. But the next step for me was LSU. Swam there for 4 years. I had a really good 4 years there, especially like getting to race these guys. It's always fun. But so graduated last year, and now I have made my new move out to Berkeley. I'm training with the Cal Bears out here, so it's been a good change. But yeah, I'm still day in day out loving it, and I think that's another most important part to this. You can do it every day and not take seasons off. You gotta love what you're doing. So I guess that's kind of mostly it for me.
I must say, I admire you guys for being in a sport and playing and being able to achieve such great success in a sport that you can just kind of walk away from versus, something like football or basketball where, when the sport is done, it's done with you. And so if you guys could talk about starting with you, Zach, and each one of you kind of chime in, what is it like to compete at a sport internationally and have to travel, and are there different rules internationally? How do you guys adjust, and just what is that experience like?
So I got some funny stories about some of my roommates that I've had overseas and how they've adjusted. One of them would ended up just basically because you have time. Jet lag's a real thing if you've never traveled internationally. For anyone listening, but most of the time that I've traveled has been to Asia, which is a 12-hour switch. I do think that an Asian times change is easier to do than going to Europe, which is only 6 to 8 hours, depending on where you're at, because you can basically just flip your entire schedule versus have to shift it just partially, if you're following me there. But we'd go over and I would nap every day. I wake up in the morning, I'd go to practice, I'd come back, eat breakfast, I would nap, wake up, go to afternoon practice, eat dinner, watch a movie or do whatever, and then that was my typical day in the States. So I tried to get back to normal as soon as possible when I traveled overseas. But the biggest thing in the first time that I traveled overseas was to Ireland. And the biggest thing I learned there is they don't have the Gatorade that we have, and they don't have the snacks that we have. And swimmers have big appetites, so that every time since then, it's like I'd take my own Gatorade or Goldfish, Wheat Thins, and what else? The Lifesaver gummies, because the little sweets when you're laying in bed after a hard day, there's nothing better than that, especially when you're overseas. And so you got to take a piece of home with you to get you through, because they don't. You might not go and have a chips or something crunchy or something sweet like you're used to. So those are the things that you start to miss that your body is already used to because that's what you've been eating for however long you've been training for it. So you take your own, I would take my own oatmeal. I think one time I took my own soy sauce because they would serve rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I like soy sauce on my rice and they wouldn't give you any. So you had to get creative over there. So what no one tells you when you go overseas. But the other thing that I learned was I started going over and they give you a country cap and it's got the American flag on the side. That's absolutely awesome. And then sometimes, if you're lucky enough, it's got your name on it, which is also extra awesome. And I started doing that, and I was like, I need to go over there and represent the USA because I'm Team USA and I'm an American and we're good at this. And I'm going to let everybody down if I suck. And I always swam slow. And then one summer, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I was like, I put all my eggs in one basket, and that's was probably one of my breakout meets. And I went overseas. And I was like, you know what? My country wasn't the one waking up at 5:30 to go swim for 2 hours in a cold pool. And they weren't there when I was sore and had to, stretch after practice. They weren't the one. My country wasn't with me when I was doing extra work afterwards. I was like, I did all of that stuff and went through that trial and tribulation, that's what you want to call it, for myself. And so I was like, I'm going to do this for me because this is what I want to do because I love this and this is what I enjoy. And then I went off and got a medal over there. And then that was fun to take back to the country. So there's that little mind shift because I think representing something as big as the U.S. can be a lot for people. And if you just take it and remember that you're doing this for you and you're having fun and this is a sport, because basically all professional athletes, and I would be interested to see what you guys think of this, but professional athletes are just grown-up kids. They get to play games for money, essentially. And I think there's great awesomeness in that. And I think at the core of sport, that's what it should always be about, is just playing games and having fun. So, you take it back to that, and I think that's when you can compete in whatever sport, but you can compete freely. You just go out there and have fun. I think that's when most of all of us are at our best.
But yeah, Zach, that part about like getting the hats with your name on it and all that, especially like the swim caps too, for me, that was a super cool part and an unexpected part too, because I didn't think like those are just going to show up, and for me, they kind of did. But being able to put that American hat on and seeing all that in front of you and knowing what you're about to go do is super cool part of the sport. And I don't know, for me, that was like the super special part, is being able to see your name on that stuff and knowing like that you're about to go do that.
Yeah, I mean,
So I think
I
you're talking
definitely.
about the box. Tell people about the box.
Oh yeah, dude, the box is like when you get the suitcase with the luggage and all the stuff in there, the box is like, what is it, 5 or 6 feet long or something like that. It weighs like 150 pounds. it's like fully loaded up. I mean, at least that's what it feels like it's gotten there. But it's just the biggest, most like uncomfortable thing to go move and pick up because it's so big and wide. But that was incredible walking into the mailroom and be like, that is for me. I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool feeling. Like I'd agree with Brooks. Like
But I thought that was super cool.
getting like the care package is pretty surreal. Pretty surreal to say the least.
You guys talked about training and working out for your sport, right? So starting with you, Grant, and Zach Brooks, you guys please chime in. What is an average workout day like for you guys? Kind of what will you do? How many hours will you spend in the pool versus is there any weight training involved? What is that like?
I think across the board, like just in general, the swimmer side of things, swimmers have one of the most grueling and heaviest workloads. Yeah, we're not pounding our bodies on the pavement every day, but staring at the black line at the bottom of the pool, getting up, 5 a.m. for some of us, getting in a pool at 6 a.m. and then coming back later. Pretty tough, but throughout my career, I've gone through different cycles, but pretty much the constant that I've been in college has been, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're in the pool twice for 2 hours, one in the morning at 6 a.m., bright and early. Fortunately, in Arizona State, we get to see the sunrise, so that makes it at least a little bit more manageable, a little bit better. And then we're back in the pool at 2 p.m. till 4 p.m. 3 other days of the week, we only have one swimming session, 2 hours, but then after that, we have another weight session right after that. So weight and strength training, 3 days a week typically. I really haven't heard too many people go above 4, but around 2 to 4, I'd say, like average. But yeah, for swimming, I think it's very grueling, across the board. Like Zach, Brooks, and I probably have, at sometimes very similar schedules, but also at different times, very different schedules. And especially at our stages of our careers too, it can fluctuate pretty heavily. Based on what we need, based on our events, based on kind of our training age as well too. So yeah, I mean, I swim 9 times a week right now, and I do strength training 3 times a week. Sometimes when we have competitions, that changes. Sometimes if it's a little bit not really a lighter phase, but if we have like a tapering, resting, kind of remove some of or ideally remove some of the morning workouts. But yeah, I mean, on average, looking at like around 20 hours of training a week, just raw in the pool, and anywhere from 3 to 5 hours in the weight room, 2 to 5 hours as well. So it's a bit different. It doesn't break down like the body like it does getting hit by a tackle per se on the football field. But it's definitely pretty hard and challenging mentally, emotionally, because you don't have those exact like moments of impact. But it's just kind of like it's the slow burn, it's the slow death, but that creeps up on you. But yeah, it's always cool to see what works for everyone. I think swimming's in a new cool spot where some people are getting better individualization. So if you do better on swimming 5 times a week in the afternoon, like that works for you, I guess that works for you. It might be frustrating to people, but at the end of the day, it's about who can put the fastest time on the board. And that's kind of, board doesn't lie. So it's just an interesting aspect in our sport right now. But yeah, I'd say like Zach emphasized at the start of it, the average early mornings, mid-afternoon, 3 strength trainings. Now you have yourself a swimming schedule.
Yeah, he said it's not the same as getting tackled by other linebackers. And I think technically he's right, but there's been some mornings where I rolled out of bed where it definitely felt like I got tackled by a couple guys repeatedly. Yeah, I'd say Grant's pretty spot on. I think currently I'm doing something. I think there's only a handful of us that are working proper 9 to 5. So my average now has totally been a complete change from what Grant said. What Grant had described is basically what I did all in college and then through basically the Olympics. And then about a year ago, I got a job in a construction company as a GC. So I'm a project engineer. And so now I swim basically 6 times a week, all in the morning. And then I go to work, and then I would lift 2 to 3 times a week after work at night, and then trying to come back, manage my recovery and my weights, making food, meal prepping breakfast and lunch for the next day, because we can't just go around eating garbage, and we eat a lot. So there's kind of that goes with it. Plus, making sure I'm married, so making sure that the wife is happy and we have a good home life, because that goes downhill. Then it doesn't matter how good I am at the pool, but that'll probably suck anyway. So kind of managing a whole life thing instead of just swimming now. So, and that's been a fun change for me, and I've been enjoying handling that challenge. And I've got everybody around me and at work is very supportive of what I'm doing in the pool, and I'm just trying to manage all of that.
That's major, Zach. That's hats off to you.
Is Brooks, what do you think? What is your day like?
It's very similar to Grant's right now. 3 lifts, so 9 swims in the water, 3 lifts, and we'll do 2 dry lines on top of that. And yeah, like the stretching afterwards and the prehab and rehab, keeping muscles and joints strong and like preventing them from getting injured. You have a lot of time inside and outside of the pool, but that's kind of the average right now is 9 swims, 3 lifts, 2 dry lines for me.
Grant, you did say something. You said you were in Arizona. You get to watch the sunrise. How much crappier would it be swimming, waking up in the morning? Same question for you, Brooks, and not having the sunrise.
Yeah, I mean, like, there will be days. So, like, sometimes on Saturdays, we have like a staggered practice. So, like, there'll be groups that come in at 6 to 8. So, they're like in the pool when it happens. And then the other group's like 8 to 10 a.m. So, we'll come in like as you can see the sun, like, sun rising, like, before your session. And it's like, I mean, obviously, there are some intense moments around the pool, like for sets or main work of the day. But it almost seems like no matter where you're at, like, everyone just like stops and admires like the raw, like, beauty of it, which is kind of cool. Like everyone just pulls out their phone, everyone just stops and like just appreciates it. But coming from being a Midwest man myself and just waking up in gray and cold Indiana and Ohio and going to a pool that's indoors kind of feels like a dungeon. It's so much better. Like even if I remember there was one time my freshman year I had 3 exams, thought I like failed 2 of them, and I came back and I was like, I got a like another 2-hour practice tonight. And then I was doing backstroke and I just looking up at the sky. There was like one cloud. I could see like palm trees over in the side of the pool. And I was like, dang, I'm just so grateful to be here. I'm just lucky to be here. Like what an opportunity to do what I want to do, pursue my dreams and goals. And I don't know, when I see the sunrise, like it just simplifies it. It just is it's like an easier reminder to be like, dang, like, all right, there could be a lot worse things in life. That's for dang sure. So it makes a huge impact on my mood and wellness.
That's definitely the same for me as well. Like I kind of came from a pool that was a little.
So Brooks, what about you?
Yeah. I kind of came from a pool that was a little bit dungeony. It was kind of dark and kind of hard for a lot of sunlight to get in there. So I mean, for me, the sunlight is so nice. I mean, I just came from a trip back from OTC where we didn't really get any sunlight, and I was like, yes, I get to get a little tan today. And I mean, that's like always so nice to look forward to that in the afternoon, especially like you get the nice sun in the afternoon, you get the sunrise in the morning, so always super nice, and that's something I look forward to for sure.
No doubt. Fortunately, I mean, I guess the only non-Olympian on the podcast will take this one, but fortunately we have 2 guys that have been Olympians already. So, when we talk about true preparation, I think these guys definitely have, a better idea than most by far, to say the least. But I think that's one aspect that I've definitely learned training with so many great coaches now is there's a difference between showing up to the meet and going to make the team. And I think like obviously it's relative to where you're at in your career and your ability. But like Brooks and Zach, I can't say enough great things about them both, but especially like preparing and executing at the meet is so important and so overlooked. It's everyone can have everything right, but really when you take that step into the arena, into your event, into each event, prelims, and then qualifying top 16, and then you have to perform top 8 in those 16 to move on to the finals. So you're swimming 3 total times. And then from there at the Olympic trials, you have to qualify. And most of the events, you have to either be first or second, or you don't make the team. And for the 100 meter and 200 meter freestyle, technically it's top 4 will also qualify for relays. And then oftentimes 5th and 6th will also get invited depending on how the rest of the meet goes, but that doesn't always happen. We learned that in 2021 for the 4x100 freestyle relay. We had 6 guys and only took 5, so the 6th guy was left out. But there's Olympic trial standards,
right.
United
the
States
6th
swimming
guy was an Olympic medalist
sets
on
based on like an
from
algorithm, the percentage from the trials before, make that, get to the meet, and then from there you perform in preliminaries. Everyone does. Then like I said, the top 16 of those preliminaries go on to the semifinal, and then in the semifinal, those 16, the top 8 fastest times go on to the finals. And then lastly, the third time you swim for all 200 meters and down, the top 2 for most events will go on to compete for Team USA. So it's pretty intense. Not all of the sessions, I think, for Olympic trials are, but at a lot of meets. Not all of them are televised, and the United States domestically doesn't always have a prelim, semifinals, finals meet. So not many people know that we have to really perform like near at our best performance all time, 3 times in a row to even 2 times in a row to even get a chance, and then 3 times in a row to make the team. And these guys have done that. So I'll toss it to either one of these guys of, the final steps. I've gone to 3 Olympic trials, but, they've taken the final steps of executing at the highest levels for sure, which, I'm aspiring to get to, but definitely look to these guys for advice. And I'm interested to hear what, they have to say on this aspect as well.
All right, Zach Brooks.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, Grant was like right on. I mean, it goes from, I mean, I don't even know how many entries were listed in, I guess, my event, the 100 free. There's probably over 100. I mean, for sure, easily over 100. And then top 16, top 8, top 4, maybe top 5, top 6. And that process is like he said, grueling. Because, I mean, you got to be there. You got to warm up. You got to warm down. You got to get in the mental space to be able to perform at your best 3 times in a row, especially in the morning, which is definitely the hardest one. Or, I mean, for some people, it's the semifinal is the hardest one because some people try and gauge that race, and you don't really have time to gauge that race. You just gotta send it out every time, and that takes a lot out of you physically and mentally over the course of a 9-day meet, which that is. And so, I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, when you do make that spot, it's pretty amazing kind of how you're kind of swept up out of there, and then you're brought into these like back rooms, and you see all the clothing laid out, signing all these different documents, gathering all this information to be able to be eligible to go travel with them. And so you're trying on all your gear, setting all that stuff up, and then for me it was kind of like I went home for a couple days, or I think it was, I don't know, maybe a week or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were out of there. It was 9-hour flight to Hawaii, and then another 9-hour flight to Japan, and then it's kind of a whole nother world from there. And I guess, like, if Zach, you want to speak on that more, if you want to add anything else to that, but I'll kind of leave it there.
Yeah, I think that was great. I want to explain why I laughed when you said, who wants to take this one? I laughed because trying to explain swimming, that's not something swimmers do. Or swimming does a really good job is telling people what's going on and how the sport works. But the fact that you have to make a time standard to get invited to the meet to maybe go. So I'm going to Worlds next month, and my coworkers are like, and this one's already disqualifies you for the Olympics. And I was like, no, that's its own separate thing. This is another thing entirely. But like, yeah, you got to go, you got to make a time standard just to go. Then you got to get everyone swims, you got to be top 16. Then you got to do it again at night and be top 8. Then you come back the next night and then you got to be top 2. Otherwise, you get a pat on the back and a medal, and you're going back to your house. But I always called it the Olympic trials because it's just as, I think it starts back in January or February, whenever that like mental strain starts to come in terms of, it's not just physically you have to be ready to swim at your best. And we get a schedule and it says 8:27 p.m. Like, okay, that's the exact minute on the exact date with the exact place that I need to be at my best or bust. And it's basically like, in my case, like this was a lifelong dream of mine since I was 7. So I guess I've made it. Well, I don't remember how old I was. I think it was 23. So whatever that math is, I'm like, that's a long time. And if you miss that window, you have to wait 4 years. So it's the mental and emotional aspects you have to get right, get your head on. Otherwise, you could be at your best physically, but if something's wrong, you don't believe in yourself for the right 3 minutes of your life, you're going home. And so it's like, but then also like the night before and having to calm yourself down, you have to amp yourself up for prelims, calm yourself down just so you can go take a nap and rest just to be ready to compete again that night. Then you're like, okay, I've got a real shot going into finals, but you have to sleep that night between semifinals and finals. You have to calm yourself down and calm those emotions. And everyone's wanting to reach out to you and be like, hey, you're doing such a great job. You got a great chance. And you're like, you're shutting your phone off probably, which I would bet you guys probably did. Yeah, don't tell me something I don't already know. And then I remember waking up from my nap or from in the middle of the night with like my heart pounding out of my chest. I'm like, dude, it's 3 a.m. You don't race until like 9 o'clock tonight. Chill. But like, that's like the mental and emotional strain that goes with it. And I'm like, I think there's a little bit of PTSD there because now that we're in January, everyone's like, oh, it's an Olympic year. And I'm like, dude, it's 6 months away before we even are booking our flights for trials. I'm like, let's just pump the brakes on the whole, yay, it's an Olympic year thing. We got plenty of time. In May we can start freaking out about that. But that's the other stress that I don't think a lot of people talk about that goes with Olympic trial stuff. And I've always said, it's like, it'd be better to get 4th or 5th than to get 3rd in at least in my event, because you get third by .01, you're not going to the Olympics. You're going home. So yeah, there's a lot there. Just Olympic trials plural, because it's more than just that physical race.
I think I think what Zach said is like super accurate, the trials plural of, like the lead up into it. And, I think what he really said is like, every meet, I mean, it's maybe plus or minus 1 minute. Like, and if they're off by like more, like that 8:27 p.m., like coaches are literally like, hey, like go to the meet official and be like, we're off track here. Like we need to slow it down or speed it up. Like this isn't how the agenda is supposed to go, which is kind of comical in itself. But it's also just the realization, like Zach said, that, whether it is the Olympic trials, whether it's the NCAA, whether it's world championships, it's like NCAA's once a year. World championships every 2 years, Olympic trials every 4 years. And if you miss that opportunity, like it's just gone. It doesn't really care about your feelings. It doesn't really care about your status. It doesn't really care about where you came from or who you are, what you look like, what your age is. And I think there's a beauty in that, and also obviously a big challenge to that too. But like in the NFL, like you get 16 games to perform. We just saw it with plenty of teams like Jaguars, hot start to the year, atrocious back end, failed to make the playoffs. Eagles, one of the best starts in the NFL, didn't matter. They got early exit, first round playoffs. And they had that whole season to kind of figure it out, put it together, lose it. But really, it's this like gradual process of working towards it, NBA 80 plus games, MLB like over 130 games. Like you have that many more opportunities to bump your stats, make your Hall of Fame career. And it's like you get second at NCAAs, you get second at Worlds, or you get fourth at Worlds, third at Olympic trials. And it's like, man, this guy's just never won anything. And it's like, excuse me, like, dude, like what, like can we just pause for a second? But people don't put that together. Like that's something, like that's what like swimmers and athletes like us, like track especially too, have to like work through and be able to process that. And so I think that's just like very underrated, undervalued, and Zach did a good way of like articulating it, but just like even refining that picture for more people listening is just like how intense it is. And I'm actually curious on Zach and Brooks, just like your thought process. Brooks, it seemed like you were agreeing when Zach was like, I just woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, my heart was pounding. But, like going, I don't know if you guys had gone to, if 21 was, I imagine it was either the first or second time you guys had gone for Olympic trials. But like stepping into the pool, was it like prelims? Was it like, I'm going to make the team? Or was it like semifinals? Okay. Like now I'm going to be going, like now I'm legit down for it. Or was it even like finals? Like, okay, now I made the top 8. Like this is real. Like kind of, I guess I'm just really interested in the mental process. Cause I've been the outside man looking in 3 times. I've been 17th, 9th, and 9th. So I've only made it to a semifinal, but I'm curious as to what you guys were going through all 3 of those.
Dude, yeah. I mean, for me, like, I went to Olympic trials with like no goals and no expectation. And I think sometimes that's the best kind of hope that you can have going into a competition, is that's just allows you to compete at like your freest and without any pressure. And I think that's definitely what allowed me to get through semifinals. And I'm sitting in the finals room, walking out, getting ready to go. And I'm like, dang, all I got to do is beat like 6 people and I'm like guaranteed going. And that kind of thought didn't really go through my head, at least for me. And that probably sounds like crazy to others, but that's just because that wasn't the goal this time around, And so and I don't know, that for me, that's why I was like, even more special, because you just kind of realize like, okay, I just got to beat a couple people here. And like when you're in a final, it's anybody's game, anybody's race. So you can like execute it the best that you can, and that's going to allow you to beat a couple guys. So that's kind of what I got.
Yeah, in 2016, I left. I finished 7th, and at the tops 1 through 6, they ended up in Rio in either that event or some other event. It was me and Andrew Selascar. We did not make 2016 games. We both went on and made the 2020 games. I think he was in 2 free, maybe another event too. That had left. I don't know. I thought about that a lot because I came back and I think I was going into my sophomore year of college, and everyone was like, hey man, like that was awesome. Freshman, going to be sophomore. That was a great year. You finished 7th at Olympic trials, 7th in the country. That's awesome. But in my mind, I viewed it as a big failure. I was like, I went there to make the Olympic team and I failed. I didn't do that. I was like, I was one great swim away. I had a good swim, an okay swim and I had a good swim. To get to finals, I'm like, I need a great swim and I'm in. And that was the first time that, and I'm a big proponent on like people following their dreams. I think as kids grow up, they're told that either isn't going to make them money or it's too hard, the odds aren't in their favor, whatever the reason is. I think adults too kind of get brainwashed into it's just not how life works and they give up on their childhood dreams. But I think there's a lot of purity in that. And I saw a lot of my friends kind of fall away from that. And so like for me in 2016, that was the first time I had a chance to turn my dream into reality. So since then, it's been a goal because dreams are unattainable, goals are. So it's great when you can kind of move it from la la land, if you will, to something that you can go get. And it slipped through my fingers. I'm like, I gotta wait 4 years. And I was racing Michael Phelps for a shot at that. And in my mind, I'm like, he's not unbeatable. I think that he is. Then there's no point if I think that he's unbeatable. There's no point in me even stepping up to race him. They only take two. I'm stepping up with the intent of taking it to him. That's not what happened. He beat me in semifinals and in finals. I just want, just for the record, my hat off to him. So in 2020, when I went back, I knew I was in a lot better position to get the job done this time, if you will. And this was like I had a couple of dreams about it. And because like I said, it wasn't just the week of Olympic trials. I'd wake up with my heart pounding. Sometimes I'd go to bed and my heart would just be pounding. But then I'd have dreams about Olympic trials and whether it was, I think one time it was like the horn went off and then I had to like do some apple bobbing or something, but everyone else was watching TV and so they didn't start and then I finished the race and I won. But I took that as a sign. I don't know why, but I knew that I was going to win that race. And I was like, well, what if I don't go fast enough to make the cut? What if someone else goes faster than me? And I'm like, it doesn't matter because I'm going to win. So whatever time I go, everyone else is going to be slower. And I know it sounds really cocky and I've never had that experience. I'm thinking that's a God thing or something. I'm not sure, but that was the one time that I was like, no matter what happens, you're going to win. So just don't DQ the start and don't DQ on the walls. Touch with two hands, and that's how I swim butterfly. So you touch with two hands. Otherwise, you touch with one hand, you can win the race, but you're not going. You're gonna get DQ'd. So it's like don't mess that up, and you're good to go. But that was a really weird mindset, which I think kind of goes back to what Brooks was saying, is it takes the pressure off and then you're allowed to compete free. So yeah, there's I think semifinals, I was just as nervous for prelims as I was for semis and finals because time you step up on the block and I don't know, in my mind, if you're going to make the Olympic team and be in the top two, making the top 16 shouldn't be a big deal, you'd think, right? And you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to be top two, then being top 8 shouldn't be a big deal. But each of those is its own challenge in its own right. And it's hard because not everybody gets there. Like you said, Grant, like it's a hard thing to do. So you got to understand that challenge and then just go and get the job done, I guess. But each thing is just as hard. It's not, I wouldn't say it's different. The atmosphere is the same because it's still at finals and all the fans are still there. It's the same amount of people. It's just the race for the marbles, I guess. That's kind of how I look at it.
I want to talk to you guys about the pressure of your sport. You talked about, you have your meet time, and at that time you have to be at your best. You get one shot at it in a sense. Whereas you look at football, baseball, basketball, some other sports. So with football on defense, you may get 50 plays. That's 50 opportunities within one game to get it right, where you guys get one shot. It either works then. There are no 49 other opportunities. What is that? I have to imagine that pressure is greater than in some other sports where you have different opportunities throughout a game to perform at a high level and be successful.
I think each of us will have a different way like we go about it, and I think that's it's a really interesting, I guess, experience seeing that for different competitors. Like you have one guy who won't talk to anyone for like an hour before, you have someone who needs to like talk to everyone in existence an hour before, like you have someone who needs to swim like 2 laps hypothetically before they swim their race to be their best. You need someone who does an hour workout to swim at their best. It's all very relative to figuring out what works best for you, but it is very real. I think there's a couple different ways to like look at it of, like Zach's kind of mentioned it a couple times, like a lot of people, put all the eggs in the basket and see what happens. I think earlier in my career, I used to say like all my eggs are in the basket. Like if this doesn't pan out, then like, what am I? And now I think the last 3 years, especially showing up at 2021 Olympic trials was really like the first time where, regardless of getting 17th, one away from the semifinal, 9th, one away from the final, 9th, one away from the final, like every night I went to bed so well. And I was just like, this was everything I could have done. I prepared as well as I could. I executed as well as I could today. And, that just wasn't good enough. And that's got to deal with that. But I went to bed knowing I did everything. And I think now I look at it, putting all the eggs in the basket as performing as best I can and preparing as best I can every day. And, every night with recovery. But it's just a different perspective I've had of, I really laugh when Zach, starts off the podcast of how, and putting it so simply, but so beautifully of, we're just a bunch of kids playing a game, but just grown up. We get so locked up in this so often. You see these video montages, you see these great stories of my mom passed away, my dad, my brother did this, my cousin did this, all this, all these stories, all these labels that get on. And it's well, ultimately, you're going to catch a ball, you're going to throw a ball, you're going to hit a ball, you're going to swim in a pool. It's crazy to boil it down to that simple, but sometimes, at least for me, that helps just kind of take the label, the severity of it. I always watch almost always watch one clip before every big meet. And it's a clip from the movie Hoosiers. And Gene Hackman takes his for those that don't know, high school basketball team up to the Indiana State basketball tournament. And they step into this huge arena, and it's thousands of seats more than they've ever seen from their podunk little cornfield town. And everyone's what is going on? What is this? They have these quality of rims, never seen this nylon before. They have more than one basketball, all this crazy stuff, all this adding on, all this noise. And the coach, Gene Hackman, goes up and takes a ruler, and he puts it up to the basketball rim, measures it down to the hoop or to the court, and he's 10 feet. Measures the baseline, same baseline as the court they've been playing on, touches the nylon, he's nylon. Passes the ball, he's rubber. And it's just the noise around the court made it seem like a bigger moment than it is, but it was just basketball. If you could realize that and you could see that, then it would take everything else, take everything else around you, quiet it down. And I feel Zach and I have had very parallel paths. We were both in Ireland. His advice of taking things over to trips is very good. I got food poisoning on that trip, but we were both in Ireland. We both went to 2016 Olympic trials. I got 152nd out of 156 people. And then in 2021 Olympic trials, moved up to 9th, and 17th. Yeah. And it's just the process is different for everyone, So it's tough. Don't get me wrong. The pressure is harder in some moments and easier and lighter in others. But it's also, if you can just take a breath sometimes and realize that you get to do this, you don't have to do this. I think that's the biggest phrase that I've realized to help me at this chapter in my life. You can choose to walk away whenever you want, like Zach said.
That the best way to kind of compare and put it into context for other people, what the pressure is knowing when you're going to have to perform is, let's say it's the bottom of the ninth and you're down by 2 runs and you just need to get on base so that or you need to hit a home run. Those are your 2 options. If you get out, game over, you lose, you're not winning the World Series. Or if it's fourth quarter of football and this play has to be a touchdown or bust. The game's on the line for a playoff spot. You lose, you're eliminated. Maybe it's the Super Bowl, but it's a do or die situation. And even as a fan, when you watch that, you're this is it right here. And you can tell when you watch those games on TV, this is the game moment right here. If they make this, they're still alive. They can keep going. If they fail here, they lose. It's done. And that pressure of the suspense of you're holding your breath, that's kind of what it's like, but on a prolonged period of time, because our races are 2 minutes and we know when that time is coming from. I can tell you I'm racing on a Wednesday in June for a spot on the Olympic team. I could look it up right now and tell you, and I could guess it's going to be probably somewhere, let's just say June 19th, I'm pretty sure. That's when I'm going to try and make the Olympic team. Probably sometime around the 8:30 to 9 o'clock range. I don't know the exact minute. That week of, probably June 17th, I could get that exact minute. And so then you're living in that perpetual state of that final moment of a do or die thing. And even in prelims, semifinals, and just warming up and warming down, hanging out at the hotel, trying to nap and trying to sleep with that sort of lingering do or die moment. Because if you mess that up at Olympic trials, you got to wait 4 years. So that's the best way I could describe, because I think everyone's kind of had that moment, whether it's themselves playing a pickup game of game's on the line right here, or they're playing a board game or a card game, or they're out with friends and they've gotten dared to do something. It's this is it right here for $100. Whatever it is I feel everyone's had that sort of hold your breath moment. And that's just an extended out perpetual feeling, which is not the best feeling. It's fun to watch other people be in that, but it's not the best when that's on you. But I think that's what makes watching sports great, because you get to be a part and invested, and you can feel that a little bit. But when you're the one that actually has to do it, it comes a little bit, that weight's a little bit more heavy. That's how I would describe it.
I like that comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought Zach crushed that one, like without tooting his own horn. Like I think that was very well articulated, and something like that kind of rose up inside of me. Like when Zach was talking about that was, as I've
I'm
gotten
not here to
older with
lie
the
to you
sport
guys.
before, like yeah, shoot us straight. I'd say like as I've gotten when I was younger, like the failures seemed a little bit more like striking, like sword to the chest through the heart. But now, like when I get to those moments that Zach just described, like it makes me feel like the most alive. Whether it's like a success or failure, like you don't know it technically until you touch the wall. Like we've all three of us have had bad races. Like we've had good races. We've had good races we thought went better and it didn't go as well. And we had bad races that went way better than we expected or felt in the race too. And so it's the interesting spot, like for me, especially the last like 2 years, getting into the spot where regardless of the outcome, just like enjoying the flow of the moment, the presence, the process of like, all right, here's like this 100 free. All right, here's this 200 IM. All right, here's this 100 fly, like getting up to these events, these moments in practice or when you're performing at a meet or championship, whatever it is, like when you like kind of stop or take a breath at the end of it, or even if you're fortunate enough to realize it beforehand or right at the moment of impact, you realize like, dang, like this is why it's happening. Like this is, at least for me, this is why I'm here. Like I never feel more alive than when I'm racing. I never feel more alive than when I'm pursuing something I care about. And I never feel more energized or alive than something right during, before I at least try to perform the best to my humanly possible abilities. Because I know for sure all three of us ain't going out there just for shits and gigs. So we're out there to do something, make something count, and because it matters to us.
I think two things that have been said so far that
Can
are
you guys
just
hear
like,
me?
yeah, we can hear you.
So, guys, do me a favor. You've had these great careers. Talk about before we have to go. Talk about that one person outside of your parents or guardian that has meant the most to your career.
Wow.
Outside of like parents,
Outside of family? Yeah, family altogether.
Now, outside of family.
Does the wife count? She should. Yeah,
I would.
I'm going with her.
I mean, I think the wife's up.
Yeah, I'll go with my wife because there's a lot that goes in outside of the pool and the work that you do. Because when you come home and you're hungry, maybe you don't feel like cooking dinner, but maybe she's already got it covered and all you have to do is clean the dishes or whatever. Or maybe she's already got dessert and ice cream in the fridge and said, hey, I saw this at the store while you were napping after practice on Saturday. I already went and handled it and I got this for you. And so it's like those little things, and not even just acts of kindness, I guess, but just somebody that you're like, yes, you know what I'm going through and you can help me manage all of the other things that go with being sore and feeling like you did get hit by a linebacker when you wake up out of bed in the morning, and who knows that you come 11 o'clock at night, you're done. You don't have anything left to give to the day. Or who can say, hey, you're still up at 11, it's time for you to go to bed, and can kind of manage that and deal with all the emotions and the complaining that might come with training, because not everyone, Muhammad Ali didn't like to train, so I'm sure he had something to say about it to his coach, but and I'm sure it wasn't always positive things. Especially as a boxer, I don't think it was, most of the time it was probably wasn't positive, because if we're being honest with each other, training is very painful and you're living in a state of unpleasantness and uncomfortableness, especially in our sport. And if you've never been around a pool and underwater, you should try it sometime, because the whole breathing thing that everybody does just to stay alive is minimized and reduced and taken away. That's an added struggle of swimming. And so when, especially at a high level, we train to not breathe, which is weird as human beings that we need to do that to survive. But that holding your breath, and Brooks and Grant probably have it worse than I do in terms of that. But yeah, so having her at home as a consistent piece in my life is the nicest part, because no matter how practice goes, no matter if I'm upset or happy about it, she can support and she'll be there for me. So yes, that's my wife. Boom.
Man, husband of the year right there. Save that soundbite. Put it in.
yeah.
Frame that.
Yeah, I want that soundbite. That's going everywhere.
What a guy.
I feel good about that.
I don't know if it's I mean, that was a great example for sure. I'm glad, Zach, you have that, man. You deserve that. I'm glad you have someone in your life like that, special to you.
I had to work hard to find it, man. You gotta work.
I can't believe she puts up with you every day. That's the craziest thing. That's the crazy. All these jokes too.
It's
Wild.
I've had some good ones on this podcast.
Yeah, but family for me is huge. But excluding that for this question, I'd probably say like two coaches. I know we asked for one. I guess if I had to boil it down to one, in high school, one in college, would be Tim Bierman and Herbie Bame in college. But Tim Bierman, he was someone who knew my family very well. He knew my mom. He knew my father. But he'd known about me for a long time, and he'd kind of followed my career for a good amount. And I remember vividly the moment I met him. We were at the swimming pool. I just had a meet. I was like pretty upset. I was really tired. It was broken down. It was late at night, and the meet was wrapping up, and I was just in a not the best spot. I think it was like my sophomore year, my freshman year, something like that. I was just in a new environment and very distraught about my really my life at that point. I passed him. He's like, "Oh, like you're Grant, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I've been seeing you for a while. Noticed you. We never met, but don't keep your faith, keep your hope, keep your belief. You're gonna achieve incredible things in your life beyond what you can imagine." And I was like, who is this dude? And fast forward a year, he becomes my head coach at my high school and just rejuvenates my entire passion for the sport. Like I told you, for the 2016 Olympic trials, I got 150th plus, and I wanted to quit the sport. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I felt defeated, like such a loser. Just everything I'd worked for just completely crumbled. And, seeing like someone like Zach, like we've known each other for a while, like succeed to the level that I was hoping to, was like, dang, like I could have done this and I just wasted this. And so that summer coming back to my senior year of high school, he and I had a lot of discussions. We spent a lot of time together, and he just made me really fall in love with the sport of swimming again. And it was just that racing, that competing that I was talking about. So I think if it wasn't for him, I would have continued to hate the sport and festered in that singular moment rather than realize everything that it could be and was beforehand. And he pulled me out of that trench, that depth, that well, and helped me realize what I wanted to do and create all the memories, make all the friends like Brooks talked about earlier, all the friendships that I have now and all the opportunities that I've had. So Herbie Bame, but especially Tim Bierman, forever grateful for that guy. I mean, he even comes over for like family holidays now, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like he matters that much to me and my family. So yeah, Tim Bierman for me, for sure. My high school swim coach and meditations professor.
That's sweet. I think for me, there's probably, you said one, I might have to give you three. I think it's friends, coaches, and then outside of family, I'll have to like say girlfriend as well, because like how Zach said, somebody who knows like what you're doing every day and relate to that grind is it means a lot. And then for the coach, like definitely I wouldn't be able to coach myself. I wouldn't be here without a coach. So I mean, got to give it to the coach. And friends, still, like I would definitely have left the sport a long time ago if I didn't have as good of friends that I do in the sport. So those have got to be for me.
So, one last question for each of you guys before you have to get out of here. So, let's say I'm a parent. I have 9-year-old twins. What advice, based on your experience as swimmers, what advice would you give me as a parent with kids that are involved in the sport, so that I don't, make them hate the sport, drive them too far? What advice would you give me as a parent?
Right off the cuff, I would say if they want to play other sports too, let them play other sports. Don't just like, you have to only swim, and then no morning practices until like at least like 16 or 17. Like you don't need to keep going like
Yeah,
doubles.
no way.
Yeah, you don't need to do that. Like one, for their growth, their sanity, like your sanity. I mean, those are like, I'm completely serious on those notes too as well. But I think like on a more global scale, I'd say just allow them to have fun with it. Don't always be the biggest critic, just be the biggest supporter. Supporting and helping them look at challenges as opportunities. I think that's the biggest thing, is like we always, what can you improve on? Where are you weakest at? But we just don't realize like how many strengths we all have, like these things that can get better, but we're already great at, and lifting us up rather than always just having us look down. So I would say just always be the biggest supporter, always help them realize the challenges are opportunities, and just kind of express that with them every day, and share even some of your experiences as well as a parent too, or as a guardian or anyone. Like share the struggles that you went through, because I always found it hard until I had better discussions with my brother, sister, and mom and dad about what they went through at this point in their life when they were 16, 15, when they were 20, 25, like, and then I hear what they went through, and it's like, oh, okay, this is like maybe not the same situation, but they made it. So I'd say just always be as big of a supporter and help them realize, face challenges head on.
I agree with that 100%.
Heck yeah. No mornings, team, no mornings.
So I guess
No morning workouts.
I would say,
yeah, for sure.
let them kind of run into the sport. Yeah, because once morning practices start, you don't get your 4 a.m.s back. And so if you're gonna start playing the guitar, you're not gonna go buy a $2,000 $1,000 guitar off the bat. You're going to buy a $50 to $100 guitar, a low risk investment to see if you like it. And then as you're going to play that for a little while, learn some stuff, then you're going to evolve from there and go in from there. It's the same thing in swimming. Let them, do it in the afternoons, see if they like it, throw them in the summer leagues, and let them grow in the sport. And then as their growth in morning practice becomes necessary to continue that growth, and they want to do it, because swimming's too hard of a sport to be forced to do. So you have to want to do it yourself. Anytime that I heard that somebody would get a prize, I think one time my buddy was going to get a shotgun, and then another time was an Xbox if they won the race. They didn't win the race, because I always made sure I touched first. I'm like, you can get it in some other race, but not this one. But there's outside factors of motivation, which means the kid didn't want it enough to go win the race himself, or because I was too good. I don't know. This is when I was like 8. But my dad, when I started morning practices, I was waking up at 4:17, and then I bumped it back to 4:21, and 4 minutes at 4 in the morning is massive. It's like an hour difference. But my dad wasn't going to drive back 20 minutes back home, and then just to have to an hour at home before he had to come and get me and then go into work. It didn't make sense. So he's like, you know what? I need to lose weight anyways. I'm going to swim. So he started swimming masters while I was swimming, and then he'd take me to school afterwards. So then he ended up competing in a masters meet, and he did the 500 free. And I think he did some other events too, but I remember this one because I counted for him, and I was like, this is how you swim it. This is what you do. And he comes back afterwards, and I think he got beat by a girl, which was kind of demoralizing for him. He gets out and he said, never again am I going to critique you after a race. If you could have gone faster, you would have. I get it. If you want to coast into the wall because you're too tired and you can't kick anymore because your legs just don't work, he's like, I get it.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're going to be a parent of a swimmer and you're just going to criticize after every race, I don't think that that's going to be healthy. So I think you should go try it first and understand how difficult the sport is, and then you can criticize your kid. But until you've done what they're doing, I don't think it's fair. And so to this day, and I was probably 12 or 13 when my dad, no, because I was in 8th grade. So to this day, which is over a decade later, my dad, he's always offered racing and tips and what he's seen as a sports guy because he watches sports, but he's never said I didn't try, and he's never said that race wasn't very good. He's always said, good job, thumbs up, and what do you need? You need a sandwich, you need food, you need a nap, what do you need? So, and I remember you can track it to that 500 free he did at a Masters meet. He said, that's hard as shit. You're not going to hear anything negative from me after your race. There it is. What do you need? And so I laugh at that because I think it's funny. And I think that watching people who think swimming is easy go do it and just get absolutely knocked on their butt is great. And I think that's what the sport needs anyways, is that appreciation for what we're doing.
Bars.
I'm on fire today.
Guys, I have a lot of respect for what you do. Like I said, I did 10 strokes at the Y swimming pool and realized this it's a grown man sport. You know, you have to be an adult in so many ways to deal with that. Again, thank you guys for taking the time out to come on. We're going to come back and sit down with you guys one-on-one, hear more about your journeys, specifically Zach, Brooks, Grant. Again, thank you guys for taking the time out, and wish you so much success moving forward. But real quick, before you go, speaking of that, could you guys kind of lay out just real quickly in under a minute? We call this our shark bite segment. So in under a minute, how do you define a successful career as a swimmer? Because in other professional sports, football, you look at catches or receptions, interceptions, those things. Basketball, you look at points, rebounds, so on and so forth. How do you judge a swimmer's career at the professional rank?
How I can say I would judge my own swim career on it being successful is if I had set goals and achieved them and held myself accountable with the discipline necessary to do the things every day to be able to achieve those goals. And if I did that, then you can't be really mad at how it ends up, because you did what you needed to do.
I like that a lot, and I think I'd go for my shark bite. I would say definitely ending my own career too. What I'm going to be able to be proud of at the end. Do I feel like I actualized as much potential as I could have? Did I pursue my potential? Did I prepare as much as I could have? Did I do it, cross every I and dot every T there was? And really just at the end of the day, had that feeling of being proud of what I accomplished. There's so many controllables and uncontrollables, but I'd say that, and try not to compare to the greatest in our sports that have ever come through it, but really compare it to my own self and where I came from and where I ended, where I started the path and where I stopped the path, how far I was able to travel. Zach, you want to finish this off?
My 60-second, yeah, I'm gonna drop some more bars. I'm ready. I'm heating up. My 60-second soundbite on the definition for me of a professional swim career is being able to retire on your own terms, go out the way that you want to. It's not going out because of injury. It's not going out because you can't financially sustain it. I know in our sport we get looked at once every 4 years, so there's not as much money as in other sports. Our base salary might be like 25, 30 grand, which would be pretty good. So being able to sustain that and go out when you want to and not when other life factors dictate. I think that's how I would define myself. Part of why I got a job is to continue that on. And I've seen a lot of my friends and other fellow teammates who and competitors who had retired because they couldn't either they were just mentally done, and I'm hats off to them. They had great. I would say that's a great career. They were done with it. Boom, done. And I'd see some people retire because they couldn't financially support that, and that makes me sad because I'm like, well, what if they had more to give? And that's not their fault. It's just the way that things are. But I think that's something that sucks about swimming. And other people get injured and have to go out, and I think that sucks too. I don't think you should have to end on an injury. Nobody wants that. Your competitors don't want that for you, and I don't think anybody wants to be injured themselves.
Lagged out.
Wow. Zach dropped the mic and bounced.
Oh
He
man.
dropped bars and left. He exited the stage, said, I'm gone. Hey guys, but thank you guys anyway for taking the time out, sharing your experiences. It's really been great getting a chance to go behind the pro, learn how you guys do things, talk about the stresses and the pressures you have to deal with. And I really appreciate it. And then sharing your insight because, right now there's a young kid that is contemplating participating in the sport. There's a parent that wants to support but isn't sure how and what that looks like and don't want to be overbearing but want to be supportive. And so I appreciate you guys taking the chance out and want to wish you nothing but the best of luck in whatever you guys decide to do. And before we go, could you Grant and Brooks, how can the audience, how can they reach you on social media and support what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you so much for having us on. It's been a great conversation so far, but I really appreciate it. And yeah, my social media, my Instagram is Brooks_010. You can, I guess, follow me there and see what's going on recently. So yeah.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate being on here. I'm looking forward to many more to come. Like Brooks, you can check me out on social media at mitochondria_house. That's on pretty much every platform except for, I guess, X, formerly Twitter. You can find me at House the Mouse. And also check out my own podcast called The Swim Bros Podcast. Got over 70 episodes, gotten over 20 episodes just in the last couple months alone, last half year. So really enjoy that. Really enjoy connecting with some of the best minds in swimming. But yeah, appreciate coming on here and happy and willing to connect with anyone who wants to reach out.
Awesome. Hey guys, again, take care.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Peace. Thank you.